Today I wanted to show you the AIM Mobility receiving application, which is part of AIM Mobility. And what I'll do today is I'm going to show it in an emulator environment, meaning here we have a screen, and this screen is emulating a tablet environment. So it's on the computer, but it emulates a tablet. And I've got different apps on the tablet. But the AIM Mobility app, which I think you guys are using for some other things, is right here. And the AIM Mobility opens, we have a receiving app. And the receiving app is where we can do the receiving transactions and the scanning. Now, just recently, we've improved this receiving app. The first thing the receiving app asks you when you open it is select the configuration of the items which you're going to scan. And we have P1, which is our old traditional receiving configuration, which is for 1D barcodes. And just recently, we've moved up to 2D barcodes or QR barcodes. And I'll show you the difference. So if you're in the P1 environment, what you'll notice is you get all these fields over here that you have to scan into. For example, here is an example of an incoming customer label or customer piece of paperwork where they put what I'll call 1D barcodes, and they put multiple 1D barcodes. And in this environment, which again is our old environment, you would have to scan in each one of these barcodes into each one of these fields for each item received, which is a boatload of scanning. It's quite intense on the scanning, and it made it very difficult to actually execute this type of receipt. It was almost easier just to fill in the screen with a computer and to print out your own AIM-generated label rather than trying to use the vendor-supplied label. With the invention and the adoption of 2R labels, 2D labels, QR labels, such as this, now coming on a lot of vendor-supplied material, this 2D label, QR label in this case, is a string of text. And in that string of text, they have the part number, which is followed by the P. They have the quantity, which is followed by a Q. They have the serial number, which is followed by, or which is, prefixed by the 3S. They have the PO number, which in this case is prefixed by the K. And if I were to scan this 2D barcode, what I'm going to get is a very long string with all these different elements, again, with the prefix and the element, then a comma, prefix, element, comma, prefix, element, comma. And so all those are coming in off this QR barcode. Now, in order to execute that, you have to use a different scanner configuration in AIM. So, for example, our PD scanner configuration, and if I were to scan this 2D barcode, then essentially what AIM is going to do is it's going to parse out each of the fields necessary to execute this receipt. And it'll create a generic receipt, or it'll create a line to be approved of a receipt. So again, if you have vendors supplying the 2D barcode, then we can just single scan the 2D QR barcode. It'll parse out all the elements needed for that receipt, and then you can scan the next box or lot, depending whether it's a box, a tote, a pallet. But again, it's a matter of scanning one 2D barcode per element, as opposed to, again, what we had before, where you had to scan each of these elements for each scan. Now it's a single scan of a 2D barcode because we can embed that much more information in there. Once you do a scan complete like these two are, and if I were to scan one of these in here and it would come through, you'd see it on the tablet, that gets it ready for approval. So that drives it into the AIM screens as a ready for approval. So again, if you come into our purchasing part of the app and you go to download adjustment entry, you will see I've got 2 receipts ready to be approved. So the concept is the person on the floor would do the scanning of the actual boxes and labels, and then a person in the office would look at the actual shipper which was received and match those scans which were made on the floor and finally approve them here and say, yes, that was what was on the shipper. I'm going to approve the receipts. and then ultimately they do the update to receiving, which would push them into inventory. So the concept is that you're not actually receiving right into inventory from the floor. Most people like that second check to make sure that somebody is actually looking at the shipper, to make sure that the scans on the floor match what was on the shipper. And then once that match is done, that's when you're updating your receiving and pushing it in.